I am loving both the month of Pride and the month of fearlessness here at Lace on Race. And so I have decided that I'm going to combine the two on this, the last day of National Pride Month. Other prides are going to be happening, different cities, different states. Here in San Diego, we will have a pride in July. But I wanted to make sure that I said this on the last day of the month of what most people consider to be Pride. I almost didn't make this video. In the same way that I almost didn't share the essay I wrote for my personal page onto Lace on Race. This is a big deal. The idea that I did not feel safe, that I did not feel that it would be a good idea, either personally or professionally, to talk about this in a forum specifically made to lessen and mitigate the harm endured by Black and brown people, and that includes queer Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. That I felt strong reticence to say this is a big deal. I did end up posting the essay onto Lace on Race. You can find it there, and you can also find it on my personal page, and you will find it as well on the website in the bistro by the time I can wake up Rhonda and have her post it up tomorrow morning. But I think it's important, and I know it's a risk. It's a risk for white people. It's a risk for me with white people. It's a risk for me with queer people, and it's a risk for me with queer white people. But in the same way that I cannot dilute or truncate my message for cis-het white people, nor can I truncate it for this cohort either. Anytime I am holding back, anytime I am pulling my punches, anytime that I am not willing to look at entrenched power, I am doing a disservice to the North Star. I cannot do that. And so I need to be willing and able to take these risks. It's such a huge deal. So here's what I wrote as a preface to the essay itself on the Lace on Race page. It's very similar to what I just told you right now. I said, I struggled as to whether or not I was going to share this here. But there was a conversation with perhaps a former, I don't know if she opted out or not, perhaps a former community member earlier, which prompted me to write this post. I'll stop here for a minute. So yes, it was not the straight community that prompted me to write this. It wasn't anything that happened in my personal page or in my 3D life here in San Diego. It was by what I considered at least an hour and a half ago to be from a 3D friend who may or may not be anymore. But in any case, I decided that I would be doing a disservice to queer BIPOC in this space for the comfort and aggrandizement of white cohorts, and this would be in direct misalignment with Lace on Race and its North Star ethos. I'm going to open up the LGBTQ dining room as well as the BIPOC and Black diaspora rooms so the conversation can also be had in a place devoid of the white gaze. And also in the case of LGBT rooms, out of the straight gaze. We need to be able to be candid with each other. It needs to be a place where we can employ kind candor, every single one of the losing strategies, where we can learn and put all the tools that we have amassed into this conversation, because I think it's a crucial one. In any case, here's the essay. On Pride, Black folk, and work still to be done. I know it will be considered bad form during this time of celebration, but one of these days, maybe today, we are absolutely going to have a real and a real frank conversation about the deep anti-Blackness and misogynoir in the queer community, up and down, all the letters. One of my deep and perhaps foolish and naive assumptions of the last 5 years was that the queer community as a whole would have, if not a particularly deep analysis, at least a well-meaning spirit and conviction regarding issues of race, particularly since the playbook for queer liberation came almost jot and tittle from Black liberationists. Not so. Not so. And this has pierced my heart. I have been shocked at what has come out of some mouths, shocked at how Black queer people are regarded, shocked at the levels of disrespect and erasure, and at best incomplete, but at worst distorted and contemptuous views of and behavior toward Black people, Black queer people. You could, and some do, lay most of the blame on cis queer men, and a significant portion of them would deserve it. But I think it's crucial to look at other cohorts. I have been so dismayed at the attitudes and actions of some white queer non-men. By no means all. But I have been shocked at the low levels of education and the stunning inability to generalize when they talk about women's rights and or LGBT rights, but then display the same behaviors as their straight cohorts. This cuts deep. And it ain't just me, y'all. 10 milliseconds on Google and you're going to find documentation of the same unfortunate dynamic from hundreds of thousands of Black women, queer and non-queer. This needs to change. This needs to change. Yesterday. Why am I bringing this up on the last day of Pride, which, not for nothing, was wholesale appropriated from Black Pride Month and harshing everybody's mellow? Well, because this. Pride, if it is to be worthy of the name, needs not to just bask in its successes, but also to, 1, acknowledge the origin story of the movement, which definitely includes Mother Marcia, but goes all the way back to the modern civil rights movement. 2, acknowledge and confront how not every cohort in the alphabet soup has enjoyed equal and equitable gains. In fact, gains have been, since 1969, in inverse proportion to those who, as a group, have done the most heavy lifting. Let this penetrate you, and then vow to use your social, political, economic, and educational capital in righting this injustice, not from outside the greater queer community, but from within its own walls. And lastly, stop using how any given legislation, policy, or social mores zeitgeist will affect only the most privileged cohorts, and instead ask how any given action will affect the most marginalized. I'm serious, y'all. I'm serious. I have lost no fewer than a friend a week, some friends that I thought were pretty damn durable. That's true for women who identify as straight as well. That's true for white women in general. But in the queer community, it stings more. And all of this, when compounded with stories from other BIPOC, saddens me deeply and makes me weep for my people. We deserve better than what we have experienced from the queer community as a whole over the last half century. Happy Pride.